Andrew, how are you,
Hi,
sir?
Hey,
Kevin.
buddy.
Kevin,
We were just
please.
sa- we were just
Oh,
saying we
sorry.
love Kevin. Hi, how you doing,
Yes.
man?
In DC, Andrew, I wrote so many questions for you. I know we only have a limited amount of time, so I'm going to try and get through as many as I possibly can. When I watched this film, I never saw Andrew Garfield on screen. I only saw Jonathan Larson. You became him, the facial expressions, every single element of the way you moved, his energy. I just wanted to be around this guy. He seemed so much fun. So I wanted to ask you, when you leave the project, do you miss him? Like, do you miss being him? And like, is there a moment where you do say goodbye to him, like as a character? I wonder how that works.
Oh, thanks, man. And it's a really, really beautiful question. And it's something that I'm wrestling with right now because, we had our premiere a couple of nights ago now, and I was surprised to feel in my body that I didn't want it to happen. I didn't want to give this film away yet because I wanted to keep it close to me because it's so personal for all of us, for Lynn especially, and for me. It's become this incredible, and I feel the same way about John. Like, I don't want to ever be away from him and everything that he stands for. He is this kind of gold star, this north star, this bastion of kind of a life devoted to art, to love, to community, to healing, to changing a sick culture, to waking up a generation, to the revolution. And I feel the other night at the AFI premiere, I was like, no, I don't want anyone to take this away. This is too beautiful. And of course, as we did give it away that night, and you could feel an audience being reunited with a long lost artistic kind of leader, Pied Piper, and for them to respond in the way that I do, in the way that you obviously have, you go, okay, well, no, it's right. We need to share John with everyone. That's the point of this film, is that as many people as possible need to be touched by his unfinished song, and we get to continue his unfinished song.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I mean, the Alice Brooks' cinematography, when they pull out on 3090 or that pool scene, or even like knocking down the door, the
Amazing.
wall of the diner, is so incredible. I wanted to ask you this because the pool scene is incredible to watch, and I wanted to know about filming that particularly because it's a major moment, it's a major emotional arc moment for for John specifically. But how long were you underwater? Like did you have any of the visuals there? Because it was so cool. That upward shot was awesome.
It's so cool. I mean, like, it's so funny. It's so that was interesting because they scheduled that over 2 days because they thought it was going to be a very highly technical and they thought, well, Andrew, he's going to have lots of breaks and blah blah blah. But it's so funny, and I think they figured this out. I was raised by a swimming coach father.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and I think they were like, we just saved a day of the schedule and we can use it for other things because the stunt guy that they brought in a swimming stunt double for me, and the stunt double was like, I can't swim like that. Like, I can't swim like that. And this would make my father very, very proud because he's a big deal in the UK as far as the swimming world goes. And from the age of like 7 onwards, I was getting up at 5:30 a.m. and just like grinding for the sake of my father's love, and it was really a painful time in my life, but it paid off, and it kind of gave the crew an extra day. So that was it was really sweet. I know, it was awesome. I loved it. I love being in water, and I do love swimming, and being able to do a dance with Alice's camera and to create shots on the fly with Lynn and with Alice, and to like sing the song underwater, to like be in that private moment but still like singing the song through the bubbles and through like that viscous kind of like getting and also symbolically it's John's psyche. He's trying to break through his own limitation, the blockages that are up, and he's trying to get down to that deep unconscious level where he knows that song lives. He knows his heart lives. He's trying to break down into that deep water of his heart. And it's connected to Susan, the image of Susan on the side of the pool. So there's a weird ritualistic, symbolic, mythical thing happening in the deep water of his unconscious, if I may be so bold. That's, I think, where John went to find that, to get in touch with his muse.
Yeah, it was amazing. They're already wrapping me. I just wanted to
Uh,
tell you that your performance is brilliant. My favorite moment is when you said, "How did he do that?" When you're on the couch watching Sondheim's movie, and like that reminded me as a kid, or the musical. That reminded me of being a kid and watching movies with my dad and going, "How did they do that?" It was
That's
so,
awesome, dude.
yes.
That was an improvised line, so I love that
Oh, it
you
was.
you dug that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's so
Kevin,
beautiful.
thank you so much.
Thank you,
I'm so
Andrew.
Thanks,
sorry.
brother.
Thanks,
Appreciate it,
Kevin.
dude. Nice to talk to you. Thank you.
Alice Brooks' cinematography is brilliant. That pull-out shot on 3090, the pool shot, everything about that diner shot when the wall goes down. It was just incredible to watch the cinematography. One of the things I was interested in asking you is the build-up to that song that Jonathan's writing, that he has to get written, and he writes it basically 12 hours before it gets performed. I was curious, out of all the music you've written in your career, was there a song that you think was on that type of deadline, that you felt that much pressure and got it turned around that quickly?
I'm going to burst into tears during this interview, Kevin, because I have so many songs that are like that. I'm a procrastinator. I need deadlines to write my music, and that's probably the most autobiographical aspect of this film. There's a little scene just before that where Vanessa Hudgens' Caressa says to Jonathan, "Can I hear the song yet?" And he goes, "Any day now." And she goes, "You're killing me, Larson." I grabbed the daily from that and I sent it to Karen Olivo, being like, "I'm so sorry for all the times I put you in this position." I sent it to Philippa Sue, who played my Eliza, because I remember on the day of a Hamilton workshop, her having to learn her entire final song the morning of. She was going to sing it in front of an audience. I've put actors in that position so many times, and I'm so sorry. And this is my professional mea culpa for that. But so often, what you really find out you're writing about happens in those pressured moments. And so I wanted, it was something I really understood on a bone deep level.
The idea of turning 30. When I turned 30, I will never forget that, because it is weird leaving your 20s. And you think about the idea of him saying Sondheim had his first show at 27. So I was wondering, where were you before you turned 30 in that mindset? Was 30 an interesting number for you as well?
Yeah, well, it was interesting to me because of Tick, Tick, Boom. That show loomed so large in my imagination, and I had I felt so overwhelmed in that time, knowing that I had survived and I'd actually gotten my show across that impossible gulf from inside of my head to on a stage where people could see it. And In the Heights was running at the time. And, so much of it makes me think of Aaron Burr's lyric, "If there's a reason I'm still alive when, the people I love have died." Like, why am I here? Like, why do I get to be here? And why isn't Jonathan Larson 61 years old and, being on Twitter and talking to Jason Robert Brown and so many of our contemporaries? And why aren't there 15 Jonathan? So it was a lot of, questioning, like, how am I lucky enough to be here on the other side of it?
One of my favorite moments in the film, though, is actually a little bit more of a quieter moment. When Andrew's on the couch as Jonathan watching the Sondheim, in that moment, he goes, "Sunday in the Park with George," he says, "How did he do that?" And he says that, and I love that line and the way he says that. It reminded me of being a kid and watching something and going, how did they do that? What was that moment for you when you said, how did they do that?
Well, listen, on a practical level, we knew that one of the great set pieces of this movie was going to be this loving homage to Sondheim's Sunday in the Park with George. So we wanted to sneak in the original masterpiece so that those who have never seen that thing know that it's rattling around inside Jonathan's brain. And the question of how did he do that is rattling around in there somewhere, so much so that he wrote his own version of it. But also, when I think about that scene, I actually think about I screened the great performances for my actors. That was one of the things we did in pre-production. I got to watch Andrew and Alex Shipp and Robin watching that movie in real time, and Andrew hadn't seen it, and watching them weep during We Do Not Belong Together, which happens just before that number. So it was just as much inspired by my own actors' reaction to seeing that masterpiece for the first time as it was a way for us to sort of show how much Jonathan Larson revered Sondheim's work.
The line I love the most is "Try writing what you know." And that line hit me so hard.
Well, it's deceptive, right? Because writing what you know doesn't necessarily mean I'm Kevin and I have an amazing DVD wall and I talk to, ask great questions all the time. It's about emotional truths that you feel that you haven't seen represented on that screen. It doesn't have to be literal. I was not alive in the 1790s, but there was something about those stories when I was writing that show that I felt I could inhabit, and I could I could write. So it's really more about getting to the emotional center of something, and I think Rent is an artistic leap in terms of how much humanity, of his own humanity, he was able to bring to his characters, that line is a sneak preview of it.
Well, this is an honor. Thank you for the extra question. Sorry
Yeah, of
to
course.
take
No,
up
it's a
your
good
time. This is an amazing film. Alice Brooks is brilliant. I love seeing 525600 on the
Nice
wall
catch.
there as well. So congratulations to you, and I hope you are staying safe. And you are a phenomenal director. Keep directing, sir, please.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Great to talk to you.
I was blown away by this film. Alice Brooks' cinematography, that the way the camera pulls out during 3090 and you see the stage and the diner scene with the wall going down, and like everything was incredible. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, I love this idea of, you know, Jonathan writing this song all the way up until the last minute and then having to perform it essentially 12 hours after it's written. And while I won't go into specific details, but I wanted to ask each of you, was there ever a piece of music or a scene that was given to you at that late of a stage and you had to end up just doing it? I was just curious if that's ever happened to you before.
Oh yeah. Plenty of times.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
Any particular songs that you remember specifically or scenes you remember?
Not songs for me personally, but scenes, yeah. I don't want to like talk about it specifically. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but yeah, you know, I feel like as an actor, you have to be adaptive and you have to be able to roll with whatever is thrown your way. And I think that people who come from theater do that the best, because in theater, you have to expect the unexpected. Anything can happen and you have to be able to pick it up and keep going.
And you have previews, you know, and you have where you're rehearsing every day. You're performing at night, and then in the day leading up to the night performance, the creative team is changing things. So you might get I've seen people going with a new song like 2 hours before a preview. No joke.
That gives me such bad anxiety.
I know, you're like, ooh, or new choreography. They're like, scrap what we did last night. Try this new thing. And you're like, well, here we go.
That's incredible. One of my favorite moments in the film is a very small moment where Jonathan's on the couch and then he's watching Sondheim on PBS, Sunday in the Park with George. And he has this line where he just says, how did he do that? Like, it's this genuine curiosity that he has in that moment. It reminded me when I was like a kid with my parents watching movies, because I love movies so much. I fell in love with movies watching Terminator 2 and going, how did they do that? I was wondering, when you were growing up, was there something you watched that inspired you like that, where you're like, how do they do that, and made you want to go into the path you're in? I'll start with you, Vanessa.
Yeah, I remember watching West Side Story for the first time. I was probably like 4, and my parents had the VHS, and I would put it in and sit on the floor inches away from the TV in wonderment over this world in which people could just break into song and dance to express how they're feeling. And it just lit something in me that hasn't been put out since.
That's amazing. For you?
For me, it was watching, there are 2 that come to mind, The Sound of Music and Jesus Christ Superstar. Seeing those films, and you know, there's nothing like you talk about, breaking into song is something that we don't do, but most people don't do. But it's such a freeing thing to see someone go from their highest emotions into a note, you know. And there's a phrase that says like, music is one of the closest things to God. I think I'm butchering that, but like, it's that expression of like just the highest form of your emotions to be able to sing. So I remember being taken by that as well.
Transcendent.
Yeah, it is. And then recreating the Tick Tick Boom stage, I thought that was incredible. I was just curious, like, they looked like there was an actual audience there watching the show for real. Can you talk about like did that give you like a realism? Like, I love that.
That was wild. You may be talking about when we were at the New York Theater Workshop, and that was a moment for us, because for the first time in months, we were in front of an audience, and you saw the uncomfortability of the audience, and also just the feeling of this is happening.
Yeah.
And it was the only time it was happening, Lynn said, in New York. It was probably the only place there was a gathering of theater, and it felt really sacred.
Yeah, he walked onto stage and said, ladies and gentlemen, the only operating theater in New York City.
Yep.
And we both looked at each other and we were like, oh my God. Like it kind of broke my heart a little bit, because like, this is the thing that we love more than anything. And to know that so many artists aren't able to do what they love, and yet we are, like, it felt like a big responsibility, but also felt like a gift, you know, that we could do this and then give it to other artists to be inspired by, especially after the time that we had with the pandemic and not being able to express ourselves. It was so beautiful. And the fact that Jonathan did the workshop of Rent in that theater,
That exact
you know,
space.
like
Oh,
his spirit
wow.
was so there with us.
We
And
felt it.
yeah.
The idea of like these moments, these magical moments that the characters have, even that Bohemia moment in the apartment is just so the energy there. When you guys do a scene like that, how does that energy, is it feel just the way we feel it as an audience? Because like,
it's
that
more
moment
intense.
is special.
It's more intense because you have to add on to that, like that party spirit and that joy was also combined with the fact that our first 2 weeks of shooting, we had to shut down because of this pond de replay, as I call it. And then going back months later, and you haven't been allowed to be in a room with people unmasked.
Oh.
Yeah. And then Lin had the audacity to be like, you know what? All these folks that I'm casting around us are going to be our theater friends, our theater nerds, many of whom have never been in a movie before. So they're living their lives. And we get to finally do this and just be with one another.
Yeah.
In the spirit of community, in the spirit of the collective, and in the spirit of joy. So it was the most method thing I ever seen in my life.
Yeah. I mean, just getting a chance to be around each other. Also, I think it's just a testament to the space that Lin creates on set. You know, like that was a lot of him playing music in between takes, and he is a fabulous DJ. And he be throwing out those hits and in between, and they're setting up and they're going handheld or they're over someone's shoulder. He's playing music. We're just like, and like we got to have a party together and really go in on it. And
we needed it.
Oh, it felt like such a release because after they called cut, everyone was so mad. Everyone was so, I mean, I was so mad, but then it was like masks on, shields up, 6 feet, and I was like, what are you talking about? I just had like my tongue down Andrew's throat, and now I gotta sit on the other side of the room.
They shut it down with the quickness in the name of safety. They
sure did. And I was like, I don't know how this works, but I'm pretty sure that we could hang out, right? Like everybody
You know what? It's true. You guys are in that room. I mean, that scene, the way Andrew just slides off that couch in that scene is it's so cool to watch. One of my favorite things in this movie is this idea of Jonathan writing this song all the way up to the last minute and then essentially having someone perform it after it's only 12 hours old. And I wanted to know, as actors, for you, what is the closest you've ever come to getting a scene or a song that late in the game and having to do it right away?
Previews of a Broadway Mother Flower show that will happen. In the Heights off Broadway. I mean, Lin was rewriting. Lin and Kiara Ligdia-Hughes, who was our book writer, we were getting pages, an hour before. My girl Mandy Gonzalez, who was the original Nina in Rosario in the show, there were days where she would get like new verses switched up from the other ones, but then also like move the first verse to the third spot, put the second one there, put the new one over here. And one day in previews, Lin said he was just in complete awe of her because she was doing her song, Everything I Know. And for a moment, we call her the Beast because she's consistent. Like she always comes through. It always feels like she can take on anything and she's just like calm. But inside, it's just that she's a workaholic and she won't show you. And that on this particular day, she went to like a lyric from like the workshop of the show and found her way back. And Lin always says that he just looked at her like, he was in shock that she could do it. And my thought when he told me the story was, you did that to her. You had no right giving her them lines at that moment. And like, give her some space.
Yeah. You gave to her in that moment. Come on.
Now you don't do her dirty.
Oh, definitely. There are moments when I'll be on set and things will change up. But also, it was fun to do that with Lin on this. And he would come up and he would be like, okay, what if you said this? And it was like this. If it's not aligned, sometimes and the line can just change the scene entirely and make that much more sense. Or there's moments where he's like, just take off your jacket, or like just throw your bag on the ground in this one and do it at this point. And then you do it and you're like, that's why you're so brilliant. You know, like I never thought I'd just take off your shoes, you know, but all it took for it to make that much more sense was just that little note. And sometimes on other jobs, like I'll have an entire scene in a different language, and they'll be like, "Let's do it in English," and I'm like, "Well, I don't even know the lines in English, so now I gotta learn English with an accent." Like sometimes curveballs are thrown, and majority of the time they make sense.
Yeah.